Joining us is Shana Broussard, the chair of the Federal Elections Commission, overseeing campaign finance law. We are headed into a very big, well, we are in it. It's 2026, big midterm election year. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So for those who aren't familiar with campaign finance law, can you explain it to us like we're in the 5th grade? What do you oversee, and what are these campaigns having to deal with campaign finance law?
Sure. The Federal Election Commission is the federal agency that's in charge of monitoring the money in federal campaigns. If I break it down for you this way, our mandate is to enforce and administer federal campaign finance laws. We regulate the money in your federal elections. So we are not looking at what happens in the state or local elections. There are state authorities that do that. We receive the reports from committees about the funds that they've received and spent, and then publish those figures on our website. And to give you a little bit of an idea, right now, and we still have so much, as you mentioned, into the 25-26 election cycle, we're already at 55 million contributions, and we still have a long way to go.
And those are contributions from everyday people to campaigns. We're going to get into that. We do, of course, have some federal elections. We have a Senate race as well as a couple of congressional seats that are up for grabs. I want to ask you this. What are campaigns allowed to do? What are they not allowed to do? And is there a gray area there that you all are seeing?
Oh, there's definitely a gray area, and that's one of the things that I worry about now when we have a commission that doesn't have a quorum. Your campaigns are allowed to collect funds from their candidates and the committees at a certain amount, but super PACs are allowed to collect an unlimited amount, and that's one of the things that plays a factor in how much money we have in elections nowadays. Campaigns are required to report that information to us. In fact, we have a very big reporting date that's coming up on January 31st, so I invite everybody to pay attention at the website, because then you're going to see what's really happening in the money. They are allowed to make communications and ads, and they are required to, in some instances, they always have to report those communications to us, but they have to include disclaimers on that so the individual can know who is responsible and behind those ads. I wanted to give you a little bit, because I know I'm talking to the viewers of Georgia, so I wanted to give you guys a heads up, because as you lead into some very big elections that you just mentioned, you have a Senate election, you also have a special election for one of your congressional districts that is departed by Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. You are looking at a lot of money that's coming your way. And for example, the senator has raised $54 million to date. That's approximately 15% of the total amount of money that Senate candidates have raised. And while he's raised a lot, he's also spent a lot as well. He spent $37 million. And as I said before at the start of this, we're in January. We've got a long way to go before we get to November.
There's a lot of money. Am I correct in saying that he has raised the most out of any Senate candidate?
Oh, no, you are correct.
John
He has
Ossoff?
raised the most out of all of the Senate candidates for this electoral campaign cycle. I don't have the exact number to tell you where he is to the next candidate, but I think that last time I checked, there's at least a $15 million difference.
It's significant. There's a lot of money coming in. Can I ask you this?
Yeah.
What happens if the candidates break campaign finance law? There's been some critique that that enforcement doesn't come until after the campaigns are over. It could be years down the line.
It's a fair criticism, because what happens is a complaint is filed, and a complaint can be filed by any individual. It doesn't have to be somebody involved with the campaign. And it's one of the things that I appreciate the most about the agency is that we are open to listening to the complaints by anyone, as long as it is following the proper form and it's notarized and it gives legitimate facts. But what happens is the complaint is filed. It then has to go through a great legal division, the enforcement division, who will then get a response from the respondent, the candidate committee or committees. And we have to analyze it under the law, and then it comes before the commissioners, and the commissioners then vote on it. But you are correct that oftentimes what happens in one election cycle does not get resolved into the subsequent election cycle. So that is a measure of the amount of money that we're dealing with, the measure of the amount of resources that we're dealing with. And I have to say, it's also a measure of the fact that we don't have a quorum right now. So because the commission does not have a quorum, those complaints are creating a backlog. And that means that it's going to take even longer for the public to know about what's happening in these matters.
And I'm glad that you bring that up because that is a pretty big deal. I mean, we're heading into one of the biggest, potentially midterms of our lifetime, really, this year. Can you speak on that? What's happening right now with that quorum? Is there any tale of more people that will be coming onto the commission before these elections take off? I know here in Georgia, we have our primary coming up in May.
Right. I wish I had an answer for you, but I don't have the secret ball to tell you when the commission is going to have a quorum again. The process of nominating and getting someone to the commission, the president nominates. So it is his responsibility to nominate somebody, and then it goes through the Senate. There is a hearing. So there's a significant period of time can happen by the time you name somebody to the time they actually get on the commission. So I implore the president to name somebody because this is a commission that has valuable work that we provide to the public. We are the eyes on the federal money. I essentially say this is the agency for follow the money when it comes to federal election. And because of the fact that we don't have a quorum, we're not able to enforce those laws. We're not able to make rules right now. We're not even able to issue advisory opinions that oftentimes come to us with a desire and need for that weeks, days before an election. So right now, we are in a critical stage that this is important that we have a quorum for the transparency needs of the public.
And that last check, I saw that there were 2 members on the board. Is that an updated number right now?
Right now, there are 2 commissioners. And I want to also highlight a point because of the fact that there's 2 Democratic commissioners, it hampers what we can do even further. We need at least 4 out of 6 commissioners to have a quorum. So as total, it's 6. It's usually a bipartisan, 3 on one side, 3 on the other side. But it takes 4 of us to come together to be able to make any decisions. Now we have 2 Democrats. So there's certain things that we're not even allowed to do right now. And one of those things is to be able to put out the guidelines to the special election that's happening in your state.
Wow. Any reasoning as to what the holdup is here?
Well, I suppose our listeners, our viewers, excuse me, could speculate on that. I mean, I don't have an exact reason why. Obviously, the administration is having lots of things that they're working on right now. People oftentimes think that we're a little bit of a forgotten agency until an election is here. But we are at a major election point. We can see a midterm 10 months away. And the people of this agency are here. We are ready to work. We're keeping busy getting the cases loaded up. But the commissioners, we don't have at that level to be able to answer the questions.
Well, thank you so much for weighing in on that. I want to briefly ask you about AI. This could be the first election where we are seeing some very, very good artificial intelligence generated in these campaign ads. Does the FEC have anything to do with campaign ads? For example, if there's a deep fake, if there's a candidate on screen saying something that they are not actually, that they've never said, we've actually seen that here in Georgia. Can the FEC step in and do anything about that?
Well, I think it's a great question because while we cannot automatically step in and do anything, we've got a very limited jurisdiction as to how we can consider AI. Now, what we can do is we can look at whether it's a fraudulent misrepresentation, but that statute and regulation is very specific. It has to be done by a candidate or committee misrepresenting another candidate or committee and causing some damage. But what happens most of the time is I think that you see AI when it's coming from the super PACs. And the super PACs do not have the same mandate of the law. That law only goes to candidates or committees. So their actions are not going to be covered by FECA.
That is a great distinction because I actually, if we could break that down even further with the super PACs and the campaigns, the super PACs, I think you mentioned before, they can basically raise and spend an unlimited amount of money, whereas the campaigns cannot. Why is that? And like you said, I mean, with the super PACs, you all can't really, have any jurisdiction there.
So our jurisdiction, we do have some jurisdiction in the sense of reporting.
Okay.
We're required to be able to say, you've got to tell us what you're receiving, and the public can still get some idea. So there's transparency in a very limited perspective. But the court has held, and there's a court in the DC courts that have further held that these organizations, these super PACs, do not have the corrupting influence because they're not giving direct contributions to a candidate. So the one thing is that you or I can give a contribution directly to the candidate you want to support. A super PAC cannot do that. And because there's no alleged coordination happening right there, it is not considered to be corrupting. So they can then in turn spend millions of dollars in another way that shows their support for the individual or candidate they choose to support.
Man, elections were a lot different before the age of super PACs, huh?
You are exactly right.
They were. That money talks.
That's the phrase today. Exactly.
Yeah. If you can, and producers, just let me know how much time I have here. I know we're getting close to our end. I do want to ask you if you can weigh in. If you can't, that's okay. The Supreme Court has heard arguments in the National Republican Senatorial Committee versus FCC. At its core, the case could decide how closely parties can coordinate with candidates. If the court strikes down the limits on the coordinated party spending, what would change immediately for campaigns this year?
Let me first say what's going to change for your audience is you already think you're inundated with ads now. You can be prepared that you're going to see even more. So first up, if you think there's a lot of ads, you're getting more. That NRSC case versus the FEC is a question of challenging the coordinated party limits. The NRSC is alleging that that is violating the free speech as applied to those party committees. Because party committees are subject to a coordinated expenditure limit per candidate. Senate candidates can go all the way up to 3 million and some change, and that's between what the party and the candidate can spend. And House candidates have a lesser number. I think it's about $127,000. But if you erase that limit, then you are talking about massive amount of spending that can be done. And we're looking at the possibility of this decision coming out in July. It could be sooner. The court had the arguments in December, and I was fortunate to be able to watch those arguments in person. And you had some really great arguments that were made on both sides. But what I want to say is that I want to kind of tie together the fact that we don't have a quorum right now and the danger that happens because of that is because if you have a decision that comes down and then it says unlimited spending can be done between these organizations, between the party committees and the candidates, you still have rules that should be put in place that tell the parties how to do this, how to report it, how you and I can pull up those records to understand what's happening, but you don't have a commission that's going to be available to do it if we don't have a quorum. We're not able to implement any possible rules or reporting changes that need to be done during this time. But there's some arguments that, I don't predict. I sit up here and I'm ready to respond to how the court should rule on this one. But it's going to be a lot of work for this agency if it does happen. You are going to be talking about the amount of money that's already spent. You made note about super PAC spending. Think about that money in turn being able to spent by the parties. Some would say that that's better because there's direct communications and we can then maybe possibly weigh down the value of super PACs. They might not be that important anymore to the political campaigns if the parties itself can work with the candidate. That's something that we're going to see happening one way or another.
Thank you so much for that. We are running short on time, Commissioner. I just want to leave this last question open-ended. Your message to the people of Georgia as we head into this critical, consequential election season, this midterm election season.
My message is take advantage of the transparency that the agency intends, and I think we very well accomplish. You as an individual voter, as a consumer of digital, as a consumer of newspapers, etc., we do have the responsibility to have disclaimers that tell you who is behind the speech. It is not my job to say that your speech is bad. My job is to let you know who is the speaker. You make your own informed decisions. And all I want to do as the chair of this agency, as a person who sees the vital nature of this agency, is be supportive of the transparency mission that's behind what the FEC is about.
Commissioner Shana Broussard, thank you so much for being here with us. We truly appreciate it. And hopefully we can check in with you as we get closer to primaries and to Election Day in November.
I would look forward to it. Georgia, Georgia, Georgia is what they're going to be saying.
Oh,
So
yes,
you're going to
ma'am.
be getting all the news, and I'm happy to talk to you about it further. Just give me a call.
Will do. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.